When we look at this concept of self-improvement, when we look at this concept of enlightenment, which is just extreme self-improvement, what we're looking at is a fundamental flaw in the approach to life, a fundamental flaw in the understanding of life as it actually is. Now, to reach a certain state or to change ourselves in any way at all is to take control, or to try to take control of ourselves, to try to take control of the way we are, and through our thinking and through our practices to try and do something about that. But what you ultimately discover is that whatever you do to yourself, whatever you think about yourself, whatever you try and practice is only practiced because it's not something that's real. You can't practice being yourself. So you can't practice meditation. This is just a spiritual concept. If you're practicing, what on earth are you practicing for? Yeah, to practice something on a mechanical level, fine, that's perfectly fine, because you can practice tennis, for example, and get very good at tennis. But to practice at being something different, more than, or more positive than, or more holy than, or more virtuous than, or more compassionate than, more loving, to practice something like this is nothing more than a superficial thought construct. Can I practice being loving? If I need to be practicing being compassionate, it simply means that I'm not, doesn't it? That I'm not naturally that way. And if I'm not naturally that way, what I'm saying that I don't actually feel that way inside of me. When something happens in front of me, when someone acts a certain way, I don't automatically feel compassion. I don't automatically feel understanding, caring of the person in front of me. And I have to practice this. In other words, force myself through some practice of a thought concept to make myself be this way. Means I'm only having to make myself be a particular way because it's not the way I naturally am. And if it's not the way I naturally am, automatically am, then it's not the way I am. So practicing it, it's not going to make any difference. Practicing it is only going to falsify something. It's going to present me as something that I'm not, both to myself in succeeding to experience the results of my practice, which is a repetition of a thought construct or the repetition of an idea, or I'm going to convince someone else that I'm something that I'm not, just because I am being that way deliberately. If I have to be that way deliberately, then this means that it's not happening automatically. If it's not happening automatically, why not? Why aren't I automatically caring? Main reason, a very broad reason, is because I haven't experienced being cared for, and I haven't learnt to really care for myself. So if I haven't experienced being properly cared for, and I haven't learnt to really care for myself, then there's no commonality in me, there's no familiarity in me in regards to what it's like to be cared for, and therefore how it feels to care for other people. But where I've been cared for, particularly where I've learned to care for myself, then how I've learned to care for myself means not a practiced state of becoming a caring person, but caring for the aspects of myself that I don't like the experience of. Now that's caring. To care for the way I am and how it feels to me each and every day is to take care of that, is to respond to that, is to not judge that, not criticize that, and definitely don't try and change that, because I try to change that. That's not caring for that. That's actually a criticism and a judgment of that. So any attempt to practice being a better person is actually initially a complaint about the person that I am, a criticism of the person that I am. It's not caring at all. There's no compassion, no caring, no empathy in that at all. If the empathy isn't for yourself as you are, if the caring isn't for yourself as you are, then presenting that to the world outside or practicing a meditation technique of loving kindness or, loving the world. This is all, honestly, it's just a hypocrisy. It's bullshit. It's not real. And why isn't it real? Because it's not natural to you. So if it's not natural and automatic in you, that's where you need to start. That's going a lot deeper, isn't it? Now you're going back to the actual source of whatever comes out of you as an expression to the world outside of you. You're going back to the source of how it feels and how it is to be me. Getting back to the source of how it is and how it feels to be me, right there you can begin with a little bit of care. Right there you can begin with a little bit of empathy for yourself. And you've got to start with yourself. If you can't have it for yourself, you won't have it for others. And the reason you won't have it for yourself is because it doesn't feel very good in there and you don't like the way it feels. All the more reason you need to be caring of that. You don't like the way it feels inside of you. How do you think it feels to that part of yourself to be in that state all the time? Seriously. You're annoyed at yourself for being a particular way, but you are that particular way. And you don't like the way that is. Why don't you like the way that is? Because it doesn't feel the way you want to feel. It feels disturbing. It feels distressful. It feels annoying. It feels angry. It feels pissed off. It feels distressed. So when you can feel all of those things, allowing all of those feelings to be exactly the way they are, this takes a tremendous empathy. Yeah, and this is real. And an empathy for all these different ways, a caring, an understanding, and an actual interest in all these different ways in which you are. Taking an interest in the way you are is caring for yourself. And until you can do that, until you are doing that automatically, that's where you really need to put your attention. In rather than judging and criticizing on the basis of that judgment and that self-hatred or self-dislike, trying to improve yourself, trying to be something other than the way you are, be the way you are. Let yourself be the way you are and let that caring and that empathy and that understanding build. Let yourself be in the way you are, exactly the way you are, in states that you wouldn't choose to be in if you had a choice. But there's the key. You don't have a choice. You are that way for many reasons. You are that way for very good reasons, but you don't have a choice in how it feels to be you. And when you introduce techniques or ideologies that suggest you do, this is based in a complete misunderstanding of life itself. Because is life something we can force to happen or need to force to happen? Being a certain way, if we have to force ourselves to be that way, practicing a technique, practicing a virtuous way of thinking, practicing being positive, we're only practicing that because we aren't already that. If we aren't already that, then any practice of that is not helping the fact that we're not already that. It's just overriding it, completely smothering it, judging it, criticizing it, and suppressing it and denying it and going into some pretense to practice being a certain way. You can only practice if you have to practice. You're not it, and anything that results from that practice is not real. It's not real, it's not authentic. How do you, on the other hand, achieve, or what will bring about the result of that being authentic is when you allow yourself to be the way you are and be with that anyway. Just be with that without judging, without criticizing, without any attempt to change that. That will break down your misunderstanding of that aspect of yourself and bring you closer and closer and deeper into that aspect of yourself that is in pain, that is disturbed, it is harmfully affected by life. And by being with that being with it, with yourself as you are, itself brings about a permeating understanding of yourself that returns to you out of that aspect of yourself only by being in it, being with it. Now, being with it is not thinking about it. If you're thinking about it, then what you're going to be doing is judging, criticizing, disliking. So it's not about thinking. You cannot meditate through thinking. Thinking has nothing to do with meditation. This is a big con. This is a big mistake throughout the whole of traditional meditators, is that they think their way into states, and this is falsifying themselves. What we have to do is the opposite of that. Meditation in its true sense is the opposite of that, and that is to feel your way back into being with and in the state you are authentically in. And in being with that state, you will find being with that starts to permeate you. Thinking about it keeps you separate from that permeation, separate from the actual feeling of it in your thoughts and criticisms about it. And because of those thoughts and criticisms about that, you are driven into trying to achieve better states of enlightenment or virtuous states of compassion or empathy or whatever states you have been taught to think are good states to be in. These states are nothing to do with the outside world. These are all to do with how you approach yourself. This is how you need to approach yourself. But you don't like yourself, so how are you going to get to the point where you care about that which you don't like? And this is the key, is you have to drop beneath all of that attempt, all of that force to try and change the way you are, and admit the fact of how it feels to be you, and drop into the physical sensations in the body of you, in exactly how it feels to be you. And this is the only place you will ever come into contact with yourself as you are, inside the body of you. Not in your thinking, not outside of yourself, but inside of the body of you. This is where you need to make contact with yourself, because it's the only place you can. Because there you are, in the condition you're in. And making contact with that means drop back from all your thoughts about what you should be, could be, what you like and what you don't like, and any practice to try and improve yourself, and come back to the way you are. Being with the way it feels in your own body, just being with that for a long time, daily, day in, day out. You can't escape it anyway. You can't escape it anyway. And anything you do to practice being different to that is a falsification. It's a pretense. It's unauthentic. You are not truly that. You're just pretending to yourself and pretending to the world that you are. And that pretense is something you could get really disconnected into. Disconnected from yourself as you really are, into the idea and the pretense and the imagining that you've conjured through your stupid meditation technique to achieve that imagining, that has produced nothing more than a thought-induced state of how you'd prefer to be, completely falsified, completely disconnected and disassociated from how it really is inside of you right now. And the only way you're going to know that is get back inside of you, get out of all that thinking and drop back into the physical sensations of you as a body, and feel how it actually feels to be you. Feel what's stimulated by the life around you. Feel the disturbances that are triggered in life. And this is getting back to the truth of you, not what you practice being, but what you already are. The authentic you, exactly as that is. And then be very, very careful that you don't go automatically back into judging and trying to improve that and wanting to be better than that. I know it can be really hard at first because you're so used to doing that, and you don't like some things that you feel inside of yourself. You might be in a lot of pain, a lot of physical pain, a lot of psychological pain. You might be in a lot of distress. Most people will be. Most people are. That is all part of what it is to be you right now. The problem isn't you being that way. The problem is you trying to be any other way than that. Because once you start trying to be any other way than the way you actually feels, even though it feels not so good or terrible, as soon as you start to try and be any other way than that, you're introducing a judgment, a criticism, a dislike, a hatred, a rejection of the way you are. And how do you think that makes what you really are on the inside, what you really are on the inside, not what you're trying to pretend to be on the outside, but what you really are feeling as and like on the inside? How do you think that makes that part of you feel when you turn around and start judging, criticizing, trying to change it? It makes it feel worse. You feel more judged, you feel more criticized, you feel more hammered. How do we think about ourselves day in, day out? We're comparing ourselves to others when we don't measure up to our ideas. We judge ourselves for not measuring up to those ideas. Those ideas aren't real. Those ideas aren't real. That's why we can see we aren't those ideas. We don't measure up to those ideas simply because those ideas are not actually the state of me. Those ideals are not actually the condition I'm in. There's some fantasy that's got nothing to do with me, and comparing myself with a fantasy, I'm always going to end up feeling worse about myself, because a fantasy is always better. Of course it's going to be better. That's what we have fantasies for, to try and feel good. And so we think about things that are better than the way we are, but it's harming us. This is what's harming us. This is what's stopping us from actually getting back inside the way we are. Getting back inside the way we are is coming back again to the body of me, beneath the thinking, and just feeling how it feels, however that sensation is inside of you for a long time. And during that period of feeling that, you'll find yourself going back into judgment, back into criticism, back into resistance, back into these habitual ways that you've been trained to think about yourself, which say you're not good enough as you are, and you really need to do something about that. You have to, if you have to, force yourself to be better. Force yourself to smile when you don't want to smile. Force yourself to stand up straight when you want to slump, because you feel so downtrodden, because you feel so sad. Force yourself to breathe deeply when you're having trouble breathing at all, because you feel so hurt and so much pain and grief inside those lungs of yours, or whatever it happens to be. You're encouraged to force yourself to be another way. This is a no understanding of life at all, and yet for some reason, for thousands of years, the religious and spiritual people have been teaching this. Been teaching people ways to improve upon what they are, which is actually, if you listen to what I understand, what I'm actually saying here, you'll start to understand what they've been teaching you is ways to attack the way you are, ways to suppress the way you are, ways to condemn the way you are, ways to impose on you an impossibility, and that impossibility is ways to be anything but what you actually are, ways to be something you're not. You can't be something you're not. Right now, what you are is all you can be. Being something you're not is in the future. You can achieve that in the future, but tomorrow never comes. That's just the bullshit of religion and spirituality, to say that there is a future, that there is something to achieve in the end. But that won't work. And the way in which I've seen through this, I'm going to explain it to you. How do I see through this nonsense? Because with the goal of enlightenment, trying to achieve that goal over many years, I started to see quite deeply what we are all doing when we're achieving that goal, which is everything I just described. Yeah, we're trying to be something that we're not. We're trying to be something better than what we are, but that starts with the conclusion that the way we are is somehow insufficient. And that is the biggest lie and the biggest misunderstanding on the planet. And we can't do anything about the way we are, because we're not supposed to do anything about the way we are other than be the way we are and allow the way we are to take care of itself in its own sweet time. And it will, as long as you don't get involved in thinking about it, but simply stay with the feeling of it in your body, or be in the feeling of it with the body. Be in yourself as the body of you, where all these feelings of being you, where the state and the conditions of what it is to be you actually are, where they exist. The very beginnings of every thought, word and action is how it feels to be you inside this body. And until you're at ease with that, until you're no longer fighting that, you can't even experience those sensations as they really are. You only experience them as a result of your dislike of them, and that's a different experience altogether. You're not actually experiencing yourself as you are when you're thinking about yourself. You're experiencing the product of that thinking. You're experiencing a thought-induced state, a criticism. How does it feel right now to be you? Now, criticize that, judge that, complain about that, and tell me how that feels. And you'll notice the two. If you do this afterwards, this is a good experiment. Notice exactly how it feels inside of you right now. And then criticize it, judge it, decide that you'd rather be a better way. Find something wrong with it. I'm sure you'll do that easily. You're very good at it. You've been trained very well in this. How to find something wrong with absolutely anything and everything about what it is to be you. You're very, very good at it. You're absolute masters of it. Everybody in the world has become a master of finding something wrong with every little part of themselves, no matter how that is. And this is because of religion and spirituality And the whole industry of self-improvement, the whole concept that we have to make life happen. We have to make ourselves be a certain way. But why would we introduce that if there was nothing wrong with the way we were in the first place? So first, how religion and spirituality destroyed the human race was to introduce the idea that there's something wrong with the way we already are. And therefore, that gives them a reason and validifies them introducing ways to improve on that. So now we get involved in ways to improve on that. And we couldn't given hope. You're a terrible, disgusting creature the way you are. Now we're going to give you ways to get out of that condition. But the problem is we're not seeing that first con, that there's anything wrong with the way we are, even though it feels uncomfortable or painful or distressful. That's how it's supposed to be right now. And the reason we're bringing in the ideas that there's something wrong with that is because the people who bring those ideas in are thinking about that in the wrong way. They're coming from the complete ignorance. And the ignorance is that I can do something to force myself, to make myself into something else. I can actually make myself be another way. But this is a complete ignorance of life. And the whole mentality of the world has gone in this direction of we are going to force life to happen. And what are we overlooking here? What we're overlooking is that life doesn't happen that way. If you slow down and just be with yourself as you are, and I mean do this, next time you feel some distress with yourself, slow right down, meaning drop back into the feelings of the body of you. Just be inside your body, inside the feeling of however it feels in there for a long time. Just be with that. Your thinking and your judgment will kick back in. That's just a habit. Stay with the feeling, stay with the feeling. Your thinking will say, I'll fix this, I'll tell you what to do about this, and all it will do is interfere with it. You can't fix it. The reason you can't fix it is because it's not broken. Yeah, the reason psychiatry, psychology, religion and spirituality doesn't work is it's kind of trying to fix something that isn't wrong. They're trying to fix something that isn't broken. The way you are is as you should be, and that's one of the delusions. You're trying to fix something until you're trying to reach some enlightened state, until you finally discover, what am I doing? By doing that, I'm just trying to be something that I'm not. I'm just trying to, I'm criticizing myself, I'm judging myself. And I'm keeping myself in a state of harm, which is self-induced by anything I do to improve myself. It's a self-inducement of harm. The act itself, the idea itself is harmful to what you already are. You just learnt to harm yourself another way, a clever way, a pretty way, with the goal that enlightenment is a goal. Well, I discovered it's not a goal. It's not a goal to be achieved. When you try and achieve that goal, what happens is you do all these things that are quite harmful in your thinking towards the body of you, and you completely overlook the fact of life is nature is life. This body is nature. And if you let this body be the way it is in every way it feels, it will resolve every single disturbing feeling, every pain, every condition, every ailment that you have. But it will take whatever time it takes. It might take you 6 months if it's a really serious thing. Yeah? It might take 2 months for a broken bone to mend, and it's going to hurt you the whole time. But this is not hurting you or harming you. This is healing pain. And so what you're feeling now, when you allow yourself to be the way you are, rather than judging it, you are allowing the pain to change into, or the disturbance to change into a healing disturbance, a processing of that disturbance, a healing of that condition, a healing of that pain. Rather than when you're trying to change, you're trying to force it to change, you are harming yourself, you're judging it, you're criticizing it. This is harmful. The harm is still happening. So the harm has to stop. And the harm is in the way you think about yourself and the way you've been taught to think about yourself, and the delusion that there is something wrong with you. That's why it's such a difficult thing to achieve being better, because the mistake is in the primary foundation of becoming better is that, oh, there's something wrong with me already. There's something wrong with me as I am. But anything I do to improve on that is only emphasizing this belief that there's something wrong with the way I am. And emphasizing that belief every time I try to improve on the way I am is actually causing the way I am to feel even more harmed, even more damaged, even more wrong, even more bad? So is enlightenment really a goal to achieve when it's unachievable? When all it's doing in the process is harming you? It began out of the fundamental delusion that there's something wrong with you the way you are. And that very judgment, if you judge yourself in the way you are, immediately you can't experience yourself as you really are without that judgment. Any idea you have about yourself automatically changes how it feels to be you because it's introduced this new and nasty idea. And that nasty idea is the idea of enlightenment being something you must become, you must achieve. But what you eventually realize, which very few people ever realize, is it's not a goal to achieve. I don't know if that got lost in translation. It's never been a goal to achieve, because you can't achieve that goal, because what you have to do to achieve that is to criticize the way you are, is to condemn the way you are, is to see something wrong with the way you are. And until that stops, you can't be in that goal. So it's impossible. You can't do anything to achieve that goal. And this is where I realized enlightenment is a puzzle to unravel. The puzzle that gives us that goal. In trying to achieve that goal, we see the harm we're doing to ourselves by trying to be something different to what we are, by not being able to accept ourselves as we are, because all that judgment, all that fear of what it feels like inside of ourselves is preventing us from experiencing that inside the body where it exists as it is to be us, experiencing that as it actually is without all those thoughts about it, and allowing the body to take care of it, and seeing how life, nature, which the body is, how nature just happens. So if you've got any problems in there, let your body take care of it, and you will see what I too have seen, and I've seen for decades now, over and over again, on a continuous basis for the last 40 years, continuous basis. And that is how nature, how the body, which is me, it just happens. And it's not happening because of any force I'm applying. It's not happening because of anything I'm doing. Any thoughts I'm having about myself are only distorting my actual experience of the way it really feels to be me on the inside through these thoughts that I've got from the outside, from other people, from religious nuts, from spiritual lunatics, from the most harmful concept. And the greatest harm that has ever been introduced to our species is the concept that there is a better way to be than the way you are. There is no better way to be than the way you are. You might want to feel different, but that's why you're feeling the way you are, because your attention is being drawn to feeling the pain, feeling the disturbance, feeling the fatigue, however it actually feels inside the body of you, is meant to be felt as it actually is, so that this process can get on with sorting itself out. But if you keep harming that through trying to change that, through criticizing and therefore trying to change that, you're keeping yourself disassociated from the way you really are, therefore unable to really know yourself as you are. So the myth has to be exposed, and that's what I'm doing. The myth of enlightenment is there's no such thing from the point of view of a goal. There's only the effort in trying to become that reveals to you that it's just a puzzle, that anything you do is not anything to do with what will happen naturally. Anything you do to improve yourself, to achieve something better, is a misunderstanding which has turned this into a majorly harmful thing. That the most harmful thing that religion and spirituality has ever introduced to the species that we are is this evil concept of enlightenment. It has to be the darkest and most damaging thing that has ever been introduced to the human species, because it says there's something wrong with you and that you can be something different to what you are. There's nothing wrong with what you are. Until you introduce the idea there's something wrong with you, you've got no foundation to introduce all these methods of becoming better. So that's what you've got to see through. It's not a goal to be achieved. It's an impossibility to actually do anything about the way you are. This is not how life happens. Life is a happening, not a doing. It's the result of what happens. It's not the result of what you do. What you do keeps you trapped. What you do keeps you condemned by the thoughts that you have about yourself. There's nothing you can do to change the way you are, because anything you do is thinking about yourself. There's nothing you can do about that. Thinking cannot be used to change the way you are. All that thinking is based on the first mistake, that there is something wrong with the way you are. And the only way you're going to find out that there isn't is to be the way you are. And the only way you're going to be the way you are, come into contact with the way you are, is to stop thinking about yourself any other way. Stop trying to force yourself to be any other way, and just be exactly as you are in the body of you. And there you have it. And there's where the confusion comes to an end, as you actually can experience for yourself and within yourself this natural process of the body, which is life, just happening, just doing what it naturally does, what only the body can do. Thinking cannot do anything about the way you are other than harm you, other than distress you over the way you are and cause more problems in that. When thinking drops away, when the goals drop away, and you realize enlightenment is not a goal to achieve, and by trying to achieve it, you realize everything I do is harming me. Everything I do is confirming that I'm not okay as I am. So you stop doing it and you just be yourself. And immediately you realize you've been fine just the way you are, all the way along. But it will take a little time for you to learn what it really means to be with the feeling of you in the body of you, to drop beneath all that thinking and just let your body be the way it is. So the only meditation that is going to be able to do this for you is the meditation that the body does naturally. So what is the meditation of the body? The natural meditation of the body is to be in a constant process of taking care of itself, a constant process of resolving and healing, de-stressing, purging, and overcoming or resolving the effects of whatever has happened to you throughout the time of your life. And that is something that you can discover for and from yourself in the body of you. Not trying to improve anything, not trying to change anything, but just coming back to the way it already is inside of you and being a little more caring of these hurt parts of you whilst they are going through their own natural resolution. Life happens. Humans try to force it. Life is just happening, which means we don't need to do anything. It's already happening. And this is most important with whatever stress, whatever ailment, whatever condition you're in that you're finding difficult right now. Let it happen. Let this body of you do what only the body can do. And you'll discover more and more relief from this like you've never had before, which will show you for and from your own direct experience that the approach of trying to achieve some higher goal, some higher state, is based on the first mistake and the first delusion and the greatest ignorance that has been imposed by belief systems throughout the ages, is that there's something wrong with you. And that gives them a basis to sell all their bullshit in how to improve yourself. It will never work It can't work because itself is needing the belief at the very foundation that there is something wrong with you. And when you realize this is not wrong, this is exactly as I should be, and being with this allows it to happen, whatever needs to happen to resolve itself in its own time, the more you do this over and over again, the freer you feel with any sort of disturbance and any sort of pain in your life, realizing that this is not an indication of something wrong. This is just an indication of something that needs to be happening in order to keep me healthy and alive and strong and vibrant. Because life has an effect on me. And those effects, they have to resolve somehow. Anything I do doesn't resolve them. That's just my reaction to them. Only makes them feel worse. Anything I do mentally will not resolve them. So I have to find a way to let them resolve themselves. To get out of the way means to drop all your thoughts about yourself, all your judgments, all your criticisms, and drop all your efforts to try and improve on yourself, because that's just a convoluted form of self-judgment, self-hatred, and self-criticism. And come back to the way you actually are without that judgment. No, well, there's nothing I need to do and nothing you should do, because it's not something that happens from someone doing something. It's something that happens of its own volition. Life and the recovery from any effect in life is something that happens of its own volition. And there's nothing achieving in that. Not getting better. You're not getting higher. You're just staying the way you are and discovering that there's never been anything wrong with that. Okay, so if you enjoyed this content today, hit the likes and subscribe buttons. And if you want to take this further, I have put together a very comprehensive meditation and self-healing app that will help you take this a lot further than just this one talk, so that you can bring this into your own life, discover for and from yourself how this really does happen. And this app takes you through a process of challenging and negating and disproving all the ideas that you've learnt along the way that have caused you to judge and criticize yourself at all over anything at all. So you can really get over that by understanding it, by seeing it exposed in full light. And this enables you to go deeper into the further discovery of how you are perfectly fine, exactly as you are, and letting yourself be exactly as you are is the only way to get out of the way and discover life happening. Thanks for joining me today. If this talk resonated with you or helped you in any way at all, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the talk with your friends so that they can get the benefit as well. Okay, bye for now.